everybody, and welcome in to another episode of It's Not Only Football, Friday Night Lights, and Beyond. Today, we are recapping Season 2, Episode 2, Bad Ideas.
Matt gets dumped. Buddy gets drunk. Riggo is a great guy. Landry feels so guilty about killing a guy, he nuts up and professes his love to Tyra. And most fun of all, Glenn!
Glenn! Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode, bright and early on a Thursday morning. Like we said, this episode is called Bad Ideas, but we did not have a bad idea today. No, we had probably the most fantastic idea we've ever had in our lives, and it came to us by our guest host today. Yes, the one and only, the legendary Lance himself, Jesse Plemons, will be recapping today's episode with us. What's up, brother?
What's happening, guys?
Oh, man.
Just rewatching our glory days.
Yeah.
Talking about it.
Peaked in high school.
Peaked in high school.
Here we are.
Today, we were going to do an interview, and then Jesse called us, and Jesse was like, hey, guys, I kind of want to do a recap. Can I do a recap with you guys? We were like, hell yeah. Why did you want to do a recap? What's the deal, man?
Well, I don't know. A few things. I did the other Friday Night Lights podcast.
Yeah, Derek and Stacy, we love them. Go listen to them.
Yes. Yeah. And it's amazing. And so I feel like, well, I don't want to just talk about the same thing. And I watched on YouTube the podcast and really enjoyed that aspect of it. The recap, the looking at it kind of in hindsight, your commentary, your banter.
Great banter.
It was all great. And yeah, just interesting to look at it, in an honest way and talk about what works, what's amazing about it, what maybe didn't age as well. I think all that stuff is interesting.
And I think it's also the perfect time to have you because, as we talked about on last podcast, it was the beginning of season 2, the most infamous storyline of our show. We picked it apart a bit and, as we said, like it would have been a huge bomb if it hadn't been you and Annie pulling the stuff off. But what makes it work and makes the show not just die, bad pun, is like you guys committed to it, and the scenes are still the same scenes and acting they always were on the show.
Yeah.
They're just, about murder, which is, not football.
Well, I mean, I remember, I feel like someone, maybe Pete, someone had the conversation with me and gave me some sort of warning as to what was to come. And after I got over the shock, I had very mixed feelings about it because I was excited to see what in the world happens to Landry when he goes through something like this. And at that point, I feel like by the end of season 1, we had all sort of found our footing in the characters and had really started enjoying ourselves and really playing with each other, really, really pushing each other. And it was like everyone was, by that point, so locked in. So I just felt like, what made the show so amazing was this level of realism that it was able to achieve. And so taking this crazy storyline and trying desperately to hold on to that same level that's, that exists in the show.
Yeah, it's like they went home in the off season and they were like, everybody's too comfortable.
No, guys,
how do we mess everybody up
we already
here?
talked about this. And
What?
do you remember Lyla and Tyra killed a guy at the end of season 1?
It was in the script, so I don't know if you know.
And they
Right.
cut it.
I've
Did they ever film it or no?
I've kept every script. Zach calls me a hoarder. I disagree. I say
Did
I
you
say
ever
I'm
go
an
to his
archivist.
apartment? Point being, yeah, they were gonna, they were so attached to this murder that, and I told this story, but I told our executive producer, I was like, you guys, that is a terrible storyline. You got to cut that. And Sarah Aubrey came to me and was like, you're gonna be really happy. We ended up cutting out the murder at the end of season 1, like really for time. Because we just couldn't fit it in time-wise. But they were apparently loved it so much that they were like, we're still going to murder someone. But now
it's Landry.
and also, one thing I was told was part of it was they wanted so badly to bring you and Tyra together, those two characters, because everything you had in season 1 was so, like, amazing and, like, electric, that they kind of were like, how do we get these two characters together?
Only one way.
Only one way. They
Only
commit
one
a
way.
murder and a cover up together. But it works. I'm sorry, like I'm jumping to the end, but like that scene at the end when she comes in is like, you're the best guy I ever know. Like I watched it again in my car and I was like embarrassed to come up because I was like bawling, crying.
So who was Lyla and Tyra supposed to kill?
So the same guy.
The same guy.
But
Oh, they
Tyra-
had it out
so
for this guy. Pretty sure they filmed it and he got murdered in the finale. And then they were like, hey, sorry, we're cutting that scene, but can you come back and we're going to murder you again?
Okay.
And then one more time.
And one more time.
Yeah.
Before we jump any further into the end of the episode, Zach,
whatever. I always say this is like,
this
no
episode-
one's listening to this if they haven't watched the show. They all know what happened.
I know, but let's at least start by saying
Scott
this
is very by the
episode
book
was
and linear.
written by
Oh.
Elizabeth Heldens. It was directed by Jeffrey Reiner. I think it's like his 13th episode directed, which is insanity. We always ask the question at the beginning of the episode, if you've watched us do recaps, we always say, if this episode was not only football, what was it for you? Zach, what was it for you today?
Oh, I would let our guest go first.
Okay.
Oh, Zach.
Sorry, I never think about this beforehand.
That was the one thing I forgot to do. I took notes, but I didn't think
Well,
about
the
what
title of the
else it
episode is Bad Ideas, and for me,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this episode is about bad ideas.
I think it's good people doing bad things. Yeah, I mean, Julie, I think she's a good person deep down, but she's cheating on Matt. That's not good. Matt's a good guy, but he's pouting.
Now, let
I'm
me
looking
ask
at
you,
porn
is she
mags.
cheating on Matt if she breaks up with Matt immediately after kissing the guy? Like, she kisses the Swede, 3 minutes later is like, we need to stop seeing each
That's
other.
better than dragging
It's-
it.
Yeah, no, I
dragging it out.
completely agree. Look, I mean, maybe though, the high character thing would be to just kind of like wait 5 minutes to kiss the Swede, break up with Matt. I mean, she could have sent me a text.
Yeah. I mean, we'll
Right.
get into it later. There's a ton of stuff in the script that would have made the whole Julie Matt storyline land a little softer. She tries to break up with you multiple times this episode, but every time, just because the world poops on Saracen all the time, like she shows up when Carlota has just arrived at your house to break up with you, and she's like, "Well, I can't break up with them now." But those scenes that they pulled out in the last episode too would have helped soften the blow. But they didn't do Julie any favors in the beginning of season 2.
No, they did not.
Jesse, do you have an It's Not Only Football? Or
I think it's life and death. Got the new life. Got the
Oh, the baby.
baby.
Baby
We
Greasy.
got this dead body in the river.
that's the best
really...
It's Not Only Football we've ever had.
That river doesn't look that deep.
No, it doesn't.
Was it deep in real life?
I wish we would just
like you
look
throw the
down
body
and
over
see.
the bridge, and then it just is kind of like,
oh, there's my watch.
Before we jump into the episode recap, we do want to cover some ground just on your time on the show as a whole. Now, for everybody out there listening, even though this is Friday Night Lights and Beyond, we will not be covering any of the Beyond of Jesse's stuff today. I don't think we're going to have time for it. He was a 5-season character. This storyline in season 2 is so interesting, I'm going to say, as a nice way. I could say maligned. I'd say a number of things, but like it's talked about an awful lot. So we want to really dig into that with you. So if you guys want to know what it was like for him to be on Breaking Bad or The Irishman or Jungle Cruise or his new show Love and Death, if you want any of that stuff, you can Google Jesse Plemons and any of those projects and see 1,000 interviews. Today we're just talking murder, Friday Night Lights, and Lance. Speaking of like the beginning of the series, I know season 1 was like very special for us, but every time we talk to a cast member, we want to know how you got there in the first place. Any recollection of the casting process? Because I don't think we met you until we were in Austin. I think you were in a different
No,
group.
I remember the first time I met you was definitely in Austin, and I remember when we were shooting the pilot, your Grey's Anatomy episode aired, and I watched it like live because I was like, oh, let's see what this guy's done because this was so long ago. There wasn't as much. There's no Netflix yet.
No.
I don't know if I told you this. I might have told you way back then, but you killed it. Like what was it? Like you were like had a
Grey's
lion face or
Anatomy?
something. Yeah.
Thanks.
And I was
man.
like, this guy who's gonna play my best friend is so good.
You were intimidated from day one.
I was intimidated by Jesse from day one. But anyway,
that was I guess sort of the first step was meeting Linda for
Right.
that, and then it wasn't that long after that went in to read for Saracen first.
Oh, really?
What?
Read for Saracen, and we both were just kind of like, all right, that was that. And then she gave me the sides for Landry, and I walked out into the waiting room. She's like, take as long as you need. And it was one of the very few times where I just had an instant understanding of this guy. There was like some kid from my high school that had this kind of nerdy confidence that I kind of forgot until I was watching the episodes, which is like, that was why he was so much fun to play. It's not like he was oblivious about his sort of status standing in the school, but he was so self-aware and confident in his nonsense, you know.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, then read that, and then I think had one reading with Pete where, you know, he was doing his typical just throwing you a bunch of stuff and seeing if you could hang with it. And then an actual test. I think Gaius was testing the same day.
It's so funny hearing the what's the word, the whatever, where Landry came from, because so many of the people on our show, you being one, definitely, Gaius, we talked to him about this, Minka, I feel the same, are just so not their character. You know, like, you're a very esoteric, thoughtful, heady person, and like calm, and like, you know, like I always describe you as like an old soul. You're just nothing like Landry.
Nobody else could have ever played the role of Landry Clarke. Like, there is zero.
I feel that way about every character in this show.
So do I.
I
And Linda
really
Lowy,
do.
who you had mentioned, Linda earlier. That's so awesome that you did Grey's Anatomy. Linda Lowy, the casting director on our show, was the casting director for Grey's. She immediately brought you in. I'm remembering now, though, talking to you about that Saracen thing, because you did play quarterback in high school in Mart, Texas, right?
I mean, in middle school, and then by the time I got to you know, my freshman year, football was very serious. So, and I was still acting, going back and forth between, you know, Mart and LA, and so it was a matter of, you either have to play football or you do this. So I was like practice squad. The coaches kind of still let me pretend like I was a part of the team, but yeah, I played a little bit until my sophomore year.
Well, people ask a lot. They're like, who was the best athlete in the cast? And it's Kitch, but I put myself like right on his heels. Like, when we would go play flag football as a cast, I never covered anybody except Taylor, and he never covered anybody but me, except for one occasion, but we'll get into later. It was a big one for you. But the next person on the list, I always say, is Jesse Plemons. And everybody is always like, wait, what? It wasn't Gaius, it wasn't Zach. I'm like, no, Jesse is a hell of an athlete, man. You and I used to go play basketball all the time at 24 Hour Fitness, and you called him an old soul, and it's 100% true. He has old man moves all day long. he does all the all the scoop and score stuff, scoop and score stuff, all the different like English on the backboard. I mean, Jesse can score a number of different ways, and him and I. And this is where the name Old Man Porter came from. That was my nickname on set. Yes. It came from Jesse because we'd go play 21 against each other. And he'd just start talking shit and call me Old Man Porter all day long. And we'd go back and forth, man. We had some epic battles. So
that's all coming back to me. The other amazing athlete, which I don't know if you ever played, I'm not saying I am. I think that got blown out of proportion because Landry is supposed to be so bad and I was decent, you know. But Michael B. Jordan.
Oh yeah,
very good.
Yeah,
at basketball.
He is a hell of an athlete. Yeah. I just never got the chance to work with him, so I always just go back to like the original cast. In this world, it is way too easy to lose track of where you are spending money. I got to tell you, Rocket Money is just that, money, to help you figure out subscriptions you forgot about, money you're spending in places that you no longer even need. Listen, Rocket Money can cancel a subscription for you anywhere, anytime, any place. Listen, do you know how much your subscription really cost? I didn't. Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, but the actual total is way closer to like $200. And if you're like me and you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. I was still paying for a gym membership for a gym in Canada that I had forgotten to cancel on my own. Rocket Money stepped in and said, no, we got you. No big deal. Listen, over 80% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Chances are you're one of them, just like me. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/FNL. That's rocketmoney.com/FNL. rocketmoney.com/FNL.
It's Not Only Football. Friday Night Lights and Beyond is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Now, most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yeah, like you're listening to us talk, but you're probably also driving or you're cleaning, exercising, maybe even grocery shopping. That's what I do. Throw the AirPods in, podcast while I grocery shop. It's pretty awesome. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you can save money by doing it right from your phone. And drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $700 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy or being a homeowner and more. So, just like your favorite podcast, us, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $698 by new customers surveyed who saved Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
That's how you got to Friday Night Lights.
Just for the record, you were 17, right?
I was 18.
You're 18.
We've talked a lot about season 1. I think it's time to jump into season 2, but I love the term nerdy confidence because as I was going and watching further scenes in Friday Night Lights, season 3, season 4, season 5, to prep for having you in on this, I mean, starting the fist fight in the lunchroom when Dylan and East Dylan first get together, that nerdy confidence in season 1 that you had, that carries all the way through. And Landry only gains more confidence as it goes, with the exception of this kind of storyline. But even now, in the midst of the murder, you're standing up for yourself. Even now in this episode, when Tyra tells you to be a man, you stand up for yourself and have an incredible moment where you're like, if that's what you think a man is, non-feeling, ice in their veins, no empathy for other people, then I don't want to be that man. That's a terrible version of a man. And Landry was never hesitant to share what he thought was right. The Castor storyline in season 1 with Bobby Reyes, with that fight, calling Saracen out constantly for going to the other side. He always knew where he stood in town, which is why it's so funny that he joins the football team in season 2. Oh my God,
dude, there's so much in this episode. And I take the ridiculousness of the murder aside.
Yeah.
I was like, it's kind of crazy too. And I don't know, I've never murdered anyone, but you're racked with this guilt. Seems normal and fine. But there's also scenes where you're totally normal, like when the tiara shows up.
I know.
Which is hilarious. But like there's also scenes where you're just normal Landry, and maybe you would be. I don't know, but I was kind of like you're kind of flip-flopping between.
Yeah, big time.
What was it like having to play both those sides? Because they make you join the football team as well as murder a guy. Two things that I never thought I'd see Landry Clarke do.
Well, one, it was just an interesting experience. My great idea of talking about this murder storyline, of just jumping in cold to season 2, episode 1, getting just a little bit of time with the old Landry before this, which was like I hadn't seen in forever. And then, one in the first episode, it happened so fast.
Yeah.
Which I didn't remember.
Yeah.
What did you think it was?
We kill him, and then it's just like, we know what we have to do. It was like very little conversation. It's almost an unspoken, I mean, I wonder what that scene was. I do. Okay.
Yeah.
I
You're
try
like,
to-
I got to call my dad. He's a cop. And then Tyra's like, no. And you're like, okay.
I was watching it last night with Kirsten and a couple of my friends and my mother-in-law, and my friend said, as we were all just kind of like, wow, that happened very fast.
Came out of the blue.
She said, well, they're teenagers. I was like, okay, I don't know if that fully covers all of it, but I'll go with that. But talking about bouncing back and forth, I mean, that was something I remember having a lot of conversations with Jeff and the writers. Was like, this would be something consuming his every waking thought. And like I said earlier, there was a little bit of like Landry's sort of position in the show was to provide a very specific sort of comedic relief. But as you said, they wanted Tyra and Landry together. And so it was just like they didn't fully commit to like losing this other part that people responded to, you know. And then I remember later on, which it doesn't even take that many episodes for us to be fully past the murder storyline. I remember begging desperately for just like some scene showing that, like, yeah, I still killed the guy.
No, but I remember seasons after when we just mess around, we'd be in the locker room. Like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, Landry, remember when you killed that guy? Anyway, you just got away. Nobody ever talks about that. Anyway, wait, what's the play?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how you get to be at peace about something like that, but it's so funny to me that the writers were like, "Oh yeah, no. You want some of that remorse and everything, but we just want to kind of forget about it. So like, here we go. We got old Landry back." But I love that they kept Landry intact. Was it a relief for you when you got to have those little scenes, like Zach said, when the tiara shows up at the Saracen household and Grandma Saracen is like, "Matt, you can't put a price tag on happiness." And you look at her and go, "Oh, that's really nice. You know what that'd be good for? That like you just want to step out to Rite Aid. You just want to pop in the drugstore." And like that's the Landry we had all in season 1. Was it a relief to play those scenes out, you know?
No, I felt like what's
it-
going on?
Yeah.
Like it felt I felt like I was just flailing a little bit with that because I didn't fully understand it. I guess on the one hand, you know, there's some detachment that might be going on. But yeah, it's also watching the show, realizing how much happens in an episode with the various characters. So it's like, yeah, it's difficult to in an episode. I mean, there are a few, it's like there are the scenes that confront it, and then there are the scenes that completely ignore it. But no, I just remember feeling like, what is going on?
Okay. Well, you mentioned other characters. Let's jump into the episode recap.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll fly through some of this stuff, but you know, it opens with Coach and Tammy still separated. Another storyline that is completely different and very uncomfortable, I think, for the viewer and the people that are playing the roles. You know, everybody's all of a sudden working with people they've never worked with before. So, you know, Coach is away, and we've all felt like this, right? Coach is away. There's a problem happening at home. He can do nothing to help. It's the middle of the night. The baby's crying. And he's just trying to offer advice. Oh, you know, maybe the baby's colicky. Maybe that's what's happening. She doesn't want the advice.
He's got to know better. I mean, I'm sure you know this. If you're out of town for work and there's stuff going on at home, you just got to be supportive and not act like you know anything.
Oh, come on. He also does the classic move that I'm sure we've all done before. He tries to make his situation seem like way less fun than it is. To like try and like
these are rules number 1 and 2.
Yeah, nothing's going on.
I can't
Nothing's
help it.
going
I'm
on.
like, I
This is
can't be there
terrible.
to help you. So my bed sucks and I can't get any sleep. And then
Shut up, dude.
Yeah, it's
just
the
be like,
worst.
I am so sorry. This is so. Is there anything I
Right.
can do?
Right.
Can I DoorDash some food to the house for you?
I don't
Do you want
think
me to
that was
just
an
sit
option
here and
then,
listen to the
but yeah.
baby cry? Cool. I've been out of town, and my wife has had me FaceTime one kid while she changes the other, and then my daughter hides me in a box, and I just sit on that FaceTime in a dark black box until someone finds me.
Yes.
Because if I hang up and go have fun, I am not a supportive husband.
Yeah. These are
Yeah.
all the things you should do. 100%. These are not the things that coach does. And I think I have been guilty of doing something like this. Very often I try to downplay where I am and what I'm doing because I know how hard my wife is working.
Nothing
Like,
works.
Nothing
though,
works.
because
Nothing
if you
works.
say, "God, this sucks. It's so hard to be away." Yeah, but you know, it's like, oh,
Oh, is it so hard to have your own apartment and quiet
to
and you
be
get to sleep
sleeping
in?
through the night.
Yep. So coach makes some mistakes. Somebody else made a mistake. Landry lost his watch with the body.
Oh.
Yep. Tyra gets a call in the middle of the night. Who's sleeping soundly? She's just like,
Hey, people deal with
what are you
grief in different
calling me
ways.
for, Landry? Oh, I don't know. We just killed a guy.
Jesus.
You go, it's not like anybody's gonna ever find out. Yeah, except for the fact that my watch is, labeled to Landry from Grandpa. Oof.
Does that come back?
I was just going to ask you.
No, what ends up almost sinking Landry later in the season is the fibers from the cloth in the trunk of the G4 station wagon that you have. And that's why you guys roast that damn thing in the desert. Your dad drives you out the middle of the desert. But we digress.
This was Glenn's first episode
Yeah.
of this whole murder storyline. I think the relationship between you and your father is actually something really interesting and compelling that comes out of it.
Glenn's a great actor. Yeah. And I remember all of this differently. I remember thinking, oh, no, you can tell that there's still something else going on and you can't.
You
at all.
can. No, you can. In the
I don't
scene.
think
While
so.
you were acting the scenes.
Yeah.
In the
Like,
scene.
I remembered them being more successful.
I
feel
think
like
in the
I
scene
could have.
in the Saracen house, you're very anxious. You're like, can we just get going? Matt is trying to hem and haw. I need to see if Julie needs to be picked up. And you're like, I can tell you the truth. She doesn't need to be picked up, Matt. Like, does she have her testicles in her sock drawer as well? Because you're not seeing things very clearly. And that agitation and it's very apparent that, at least to me, watching the scenes as a viewer, that there's something kind of, roiling under the surface 100%. The football practice, I found it so interesting. Officer Chad Clarke, played by Glenn Morshower, your dad. This is the first time we have ever met him. And he's waiting there on the sideline. You're out there getting leveled by Tim. I don't even know what position you're playing. Maybe safety? Maybe linebacker? Just getting leveled by Tim
How was
Riggins
it,
over and over again.
After season 1, where you didn't have to do the football stuff, now having to do all the practice stuff, which was the most tedious part of the show. Like, initially, it was like, I think for me, I'll say, like the pilot or whatever, it was like, oh my God, this is so fun to play fake football. And then it was like, oh, we're doing a football scene.
I think there was a little bit of me that felt like, oh, I made the team. You know? I really think. Also, I was 18. You guys were like my older brothers. And so, I don't know. There was a little bit of me. It's like, I don't want to be in the stands. You know?
No, of course not.
And so, I think by that time, you guys were probably like, got another football practice in the heat, doing the same shit over and over again. I was probably excited about that part. Yeah.
I was right there with you.
I was so fun to have both of you back for season 2, like on the field, because I mean, we all got along great. We had fun, and it was like definitely the more the merrier. And so yeah, I was happy. I was really happy you were on the team.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
After one of those practices, though, you come out and you've got your own rally girl, which I expected to be one of the greatest things ever, or under different circumstances would have been like the most amazing thing ever. Because in season 1, your view on rally girls is, Matt, you got to take this opportunity and run with it. Like, this is not going to be a never-ending thing. Like, you're QB1 temporarily, so flex this muscle, get everything you can out of the rally girl situation. Instead,
Well, it's just bad timing. I mean, you're not in the mood.
instead you you ask her a question. You remember the question?
No, which is trying to marry those two things we were just talking about, humor but I killed a guy.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what I have to say about that scene. It was
It worked.
weird.
And then it launches you into, your thing with Tyra where you
I laughed at my ass off. I'm sorry. When you say, "Do you think every human is capable of evil?" I was like, I don't know. Like, I love watching this. Like
No, it
them
definitely
thread the needle.
It
I
definitely
mean,
was funny, and I think they did thread the needle here. And I know you very well, and
Yeah.
I know you're very critical of yourself. And so I hear what you're saying. You're like, oh, I feel like almost like you feel like the jester, like you had to make a joke because you're Landry. However, I thought it was very honest because it was like it just is funny as a viewer.
It's
Yeah.
not a joke,
But
though.
it's not a
Landry's-
joke.
No, it's not.
Landry's asking it so, I don't know, earnestly in
Yeah.
that moment.
Yeah.
But then the big scene between you and Tyra, where she challenges you to be a man, and you really get to tell her everything that you're going through, and I felt every single ounce of it. I mean,
Well, I mean, she's so good, and that was the other part of it where, like I said, I had to convince myself that these things happen, accidents happen, and it's like I think both of us, we might have done what we all did and sort of reworked things, but I think we couldn't allow in any thought of this being outlandish for the show. So like when we were doing it, I was like just so grateful that I was in it with Annie because she's that's the thing about this show is like I really feel like we all made each other better.
Yeah.
And so as from like a strictly like acting standpoint, I feel like I appreciate that whole arc so much because I feel like I learned so much, and like
Yeah.
I said, trying sometimes successfully to keep that same level of realism was something that I really appreciate that very specific challenge that I got to experience.
I remember there was one point when I was in college, one of my acting professors said, basically, I think he was like referring to Patrick Stewart. He's like, to be able to sit down in a Star Trek chair and say warp speed ahead and like have people buy it and not have it seem cheesy, that's good acting.
For sure.
Because a lot of people could do that and it would be like, okay, warp speed ahead, like nice. But that's exactly what you guys had to do in this, and it really was, as I said in our last episode. But I was like, it still was our show. It just was like, dealing with a murder and covering it up is not a storyline, but everything about the way you guys did it was so in the ilk of our show.
you bought in 100%, and I want to laud you for a second here, and I know you hate getting all these compliments, but we play a game quite often where, since I have all of these scripts, since I'm a hoarder in and Zach's
It looks
estimation,
like a short script.
well, they started doing double-sided. They started printing
That
double-sided.
was
Gotta
environmentally
save some
friendly.
money.
Yeah, environmentally friendly or saving
It
money,
was
either
saving
way.
money for sure.
Very often, Zach will say, "Did Jesse improv that line?" And very often the answer is no. It's in the script. They wrote the most outlandish things for Landry to say, and yet you're on a different level than me, because I very often have to rework shit to like put my own words into it to make it feel comfortable, or you and your capability to say exactly what's on the page in such a way that it makes us all go, "Oh, Jesse had to have improv that." Like, it was like this perfect marriage of the writer's room. And very often people say, "Oh, we get off the page. We improv so much on Friday Night Lights, but our writers were still brilliant." But for Landry, that character being so magnificent, it was like this perfect marriage of the writers sending you the craziest shit to say and you just landing the plane every single time. It's awesome to watch, man.
Well, thank you, man. That's very nice. And yeah, like I said, it was a very crazy experience revisiting this. But on the one hand, it feels like watching home movies or something. It's really, it's so personal. Pete instilled such a almost like punk rock spirit in all of us, and you just really feel it. But going off of what you were saying, the line that the writers toe in this, where so many scenes could so easily veer into cliches, where it's like the show is heartwarming, which is so hard
it's a high school
which
drama.
is so hard to pull off, and they as well as the actors and everyone involved, I was blown away at how good it is, even though we're talking about this particular storyline, which I guess
It's true, man. It's like weird. It's weird going back and watching and being like, "Wow, this show's really good."
Yeah,
Like it's really good.
Well, because every character makes good decisions and bad decisions repeatedly.
Oh, so
go
like
back to
good
the end
people doing bad things.
Oh,
Oh.
not only football.
Sounds
Zach
familiar.
Gilford gets a point on the board. I was all in on Landry and Tyra
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end of season 1. Even without the murder, you holding hands on the bridge after you have told her your watch is down there somewhere, and she's like, "We got to go home." There's this little moment where you hold hands as you're walking off the bridge. I would have bought that regardless of murder. At the end of the episode, the last scene that we get with Landry and Tyra is her coming into the house and telling you that you are like the greatest man she's ever known. And like she, regardless of all of the events that have happened, is so lucky to know you and all of these things. And it's where the two of you actually, I mean, you guys kiss.
Smoochy.
That's what happened.
You kiss after a murder. That's what happens, right? This has happened in other
Facts.
shows for you, though. You've had other shows, where there's been a murder and a little bit of smoochy.
Oh,
Fargo,
God.
Yeah,
It's my thing.
it's my thing.
It's what I do.
Brings people together.
But
yeah.
I mean, that moment, you guys had worked for so many episodes in season 1 building the relationship, you and Annie, of Landry and Tyra. What did that feel like at the end for these two to kind of finally come together, even under the circumstances it was? Did it feel?
Well, I guess, yeah, all of that in season 1 I loved. I mean, it was just, the scenes with Zach, no offense, it had gotten like so incredibly easy for us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, my God.
Like, to the point where I remember saying to you at a certain point, like, is this entertaining?
Right.
Because it just felt
Hell
like
yeah, it
it
was.
just. But at a certain point, it just felt like two friends hanging
Hanging out,
out, shooting
yeah.
the shit. But it was even like, the dynamic with Riggins there for a little bit, just seeing, what happens to Landry, interacting with these other characters, especially Tyra. But one thing that I do think was really interesting to play in that second season is and I've now done it, as you said, a few times since then, but this very specific, intense bond on top of everything, that happened in season 1. But
I never thought about that.
That's
that,
a
like
crazy thing
your
to
work
share.
on Fargo
Yeah, I
is
know.
thanks to this storyline.
I know.
I don't think you would have been
It'll
able to
happen
pull it
again
off
one of these
if you
days.
hadn't figured out how to do it with Annie.
Yeah, it was my trial
We're here
run.
talking about this very difficult storyline, but let's take a slight detour.
Let's do
Did
it.
you have you just mentioned the Riggins, like teaching him
Yeah.
how to read, and all of the ease and the entertaining ease of scenes with you and Saracen. Was there a favorite kind of storyline that you had in the show? I think a through line for me is Cruise Victorious for you,
Yeah.
and the fact that Caleb Landry Jones was your drummer,
And Stephanie Hunt,
and Stephanie Hunt, yeah,
who
playing
later,
Devin.
just recently, married the Swede.
What?
You guys don't know this?
So
No.
Devin married
Hi,
the Swede?
Steph. Hi, Ollie. You'll never watch this, but
Yeah.
yeah, they met maybe 6 years ago or so at this music festival that I was at, and I would bump into Ollie occasionally because he Shaky Graves kind of blew up. I don't know how many years after the show.
Right, his band,
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, the
So
Swede actually does have a band.
Devin married the Swede.
That's crazy. But for me, like Cruce Victorious, through line, like I love everything every time Cruce Victorious comes up. But
I love
did you
that
have a
stuff, too.
favorite storyline?
I mean, I guess my sort of happy place in that show was just the ridiculous advice that I would give Zach. It just always felt like coming home when it was a scene like that. where-
100%, man. I remember because there were times where like we didn't have a lot together, and then
Uh-huh.
we would.
I also loved your thought that maybe Grandma Saracen was a witch, some part of the occult.
Oh yeah.
That was the through line that stuck.
I had the thought as we've been talking about Landry, like, would he have survived during this age? I feel like he
2023.
Yeah, if he was in high school then, would he have gone down some crazy rabbit holes?
Yeah.
I feel like that might have been a good thing that he wasn't around during that time, because he already kind of had. I mean, that was my audition scene, was some kind of conspiracy theory.
Yes.
Throwing the.
Oh my gosh.
It's in the pilot.
Yeah.
I actually read that scene like as scripted. It's crazy, man. Like that audition scene. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll have to revisit that scene soon, because that was your audition scene.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Landry was talking about everything's all connected. There's a bunch of political stuff in it. And there's also witchcraft. And I'm not going to say that your grandma's not a part of the occult or some supernatural
Yeah.
element, but, it's all some massive world order. I mean,
Yeah.
you were.
I think he needed Matt to sort of.
Well, they pulled a lot of that
Keep
stuff
him
out. They
grounded,
pulled a lot
yeah.
of that conspiracy stuff out. That being said, no matter what crazy shit they gave you, you always just A+. Made it feel real, made it feel just, so honest for the character. And the end of the episode, like I said, I would have bought this relationship regardless of murder.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was kind of cool, even under all the duress.
It
both
just
characters were under.
accelerated.
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was gonna
Um,
happen.
Last
Eventually.
episode,
Cut
you're
to
watching
the
fried
chase.
green tomatoes on the couch, trying to figure out how to put your arm around her, and now you've killed a guy and you're making out. So
I
there we
know.
go. Other characters, other storylines that happen in this episode.
I mean, I think the one that's really worth like kind of getting into a little. We got to talk about your dream sequence. I think kind of the Tami Glenn thing, but the introduction of Glenn, I think, is an amazing character, and the
He's
relationship
great.
between those two. And I never worked with him, so I forgot how amazing he was. And then it's so fun watching some of these scenes. And it's like, I know Connie's amazing, but this is like one of those episodes where you're just like, you shine on so many levels.
Yeah,
She's
Steve.
unbelievable in it. Every scene, and she hadn't had a baby.
No, she's never had a baby.
She never had a baby.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, she's now has
I
adopted
know,
one,
but gone
at that
through
point,
any
yeah.
of that,
Yeah.
and it felt so real. I mean, my God.
Yeah, her ability to harness the energy, postpartum, having Gracie
Yes.
being alone, the struggle of all of that, the introduction of Glenn. He's a science teacher who's filling in for her as a guidance counselor, played by Steve Walters, who actually is one of Derek Phillips' all-time best friends. They went to school together. They've
Oh.
known each other for a long time. He was just such a natural fit. When we interviewed Amy Teagarden, she said it was really interesting to watch guest stars come in, because some of them would be like, what is happening? How is this how you guys work? I can't hack this. And then there were some people who stepped right in and immediately fit as a part of the family. And I think because Steve had talked to Derek and kind of knew exactly how he worked, he didn't miss a beat. That very first scene where he comes
Oh,
to
yeah.
Tammy and Coach's house, and he walks in and it's a mess.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh
my
did you-
God.
did you clean all this up just for me? She's like, I just had a baby, Glenn. He's like, that was a bad joke. I'm so sorry. I made
I
it.
was like, oh,
What was the line that got me? It's like, Don't talk to me about my perspiration. Or
Oh,
my,
yeah.
Yeah.
my glands.
Glands?
Yeah, later in the episode. Yeah, so I love all of it, and Tammy's like kind of trying to equip him with how to address all these students and everything. And the irony of the scene is she's like, you just have to talk to the kids. You have to get to know them. You have to understand where they are as people. And then she tells Julie to bring Matt over and watch a movie. And Julie's like, what is it with you and Matt, Mom? And like storms out. So clearly she has no idea how to talk to her own kid. But the advice is get to know all these other kids.
My mom was a social worker, and she was an amazing social worker. I literally had kids tell me, I would never have graduated high school if not for your mom. I wouldn't be alive if not for your mom. And I would get so mad at her. I'd be like, Mom, how are you a social worker? You don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone. This is the worst advice I've ever heard. Get out of my business. It's like, I don't know if there's blinders for social workers with their own kids, or if us kids are just assholes and aren't listening to the advice our parents are trying to give us.
I think that's
Maybe.
probably what it is.
I think probably it's the blinders theory.
But then, in an act of desperation, she walks in 105-degree heat all the way to the school, and then
Yeah.
barges into her office, which is now Glenn's office for the time being. And he's like, "I don't think you're making good decisions right now, and I don't know. You're sweating, and it's about your perspiration and your glands. Your glands are." And she's like, "Don't talk about my glands and my perspiration." He just steps in it constantly.
Yeah.
But that relationship growing was very jarring to me. At the end of the episode, baby Gracie has to go to the hospital, and she calls Glenn to come pick her up. And
Well, who
Who
else
she
is she
got
gonna call?
though?
I could call
her
Julie.
daughter,
She can't drive.
Lance, as she
They're
could
not that
call
close,
Lance.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if you
He's got
really,
some other stuff going on.
Mayor Rodell.
I think though,
Buddy?
haven't you been in a
Buddy's got some other stuff going on too.
I feel like there's times in your life where you're in it, and even though there may be other people to reach out to, there's someone who's kind of been in it with you a little bit. So it's just like, this is the person who's going to understand. I'm not going to have to explain anything. It's like,
It's almost easier if you don't
Yeah.
know them as well. They don't have to see you in that
exactly.
state, maybe.
100%. Yeah, no, you're completely right on that. In this case, she wants to call somebody she doesn't have to explain anything to.
Yeah.
Get home, get some rest. She's on the phone with Coach in that scene. Coach has a whole side storyline at TMU, which I guess we ran out of CGI budget. I don't know if we ever had a CGI budget, but at TMU, for everybody out there listening, it says Texas State so clearly in the
Yeah, I
end
know,
zone.
I know.
Oh, I
It
didn't
says
even-
Texas State on every building, and it's the Bobcats, which is Texas State Bobcats in San Marcos, and yet they're still calling it TMU. I'm like, we just didn't even try to fucking hide that.
No. I think on that storyline, the only thing I really want to say is, like, you know, it's kind of one of those things where you see Coach be the way we all think of Coach. I think as we've been rewatching it, we've seen, like, he makes so many bad decisions. That's not good coaching. Like, it's been kind of jarring, like, with the blue storyline,
Yeah.
and all that. But this was one of those moments when he, like, is quintessential Coach Taylor, when he talks to this kid and talks to him straight and then stands up for him. And, you know, and there's a happy ending to that one.
The actor that played Antoine in this episode is fantastic. He's so good. This guy was right there every step of the way. I mean, he's what Smash could become in college, right? This guy, Antoine. So I feel like we've seen a coach deal with this kind of relationship before, this Antoine kid. But the best Kyle Chandler line this episode is not scripted. They're at the diner. The kid is asking him, you know, you got your baby on a schedule? Oh, you'd never know because you're not even home. Hey, I'm going to take a picture of you real quick because I'm going to send it to your baby mama or whatever. And he grabs the phone and he starts going in on him. The guy's like, who the hell do you think you're talking to? And then Kyle, unscripted, goes, who do I think I'm talking to? Who am I? No, who the hell are you? And like stands up and walks away from it. Not scripted. Best line of the episode.
I knew we wouldn't get through an episode without Scott quoting a Kyle Chandler line.
He's so
My
quotable.
favorite was Kyle Chandler line was in the SUV when Tammy calls and he has to be like,
He's
"I
talking,
love you."
he's talking out of the side of his mouth.
Oh my God.
so-
I was, speaking of being out of town, I was in Winnipeg, and my wife called me, FaceTimed me while I'm in the van with the transpo driver, and I'm in the front seat next to them, and she goes, Zeppelin really wants you to sing her your songs. And I was like, okay. So in the van with this like transpo driver, I'm singing my daughter Twinkle Twinkle and a Dave Matthews song. And it was really embarrassing, but my daughter went to sleep.
I know.
Go.
Well, that's the thing
Good
is
dad.
we're all fathers at this point, and in that scene, it's so funny because you can tell he does it all the time. He talks to baby Gracie all the time, and it settles her down.
Yeah.
But he's in the car, and he's so talking out of the side of his mouth.
Can we not talk about
We
Buddy
have to talk
Garrity?
about Brad. We have to talk about
In
Brad in this
both
episode.
1 and 2. I remember him, everyone being amazing. I remember him being amazing, but he's so good. All the stuff at the door, too. His ad lib. His kids are walking out. He's like, "What you got there? Soccer ball? Okay, let's go."
Yeah, instead of a football, he's like soccer ball. Well, because I mean,
Okay.
this, as he has said, this granola eater,
Yeah.
this guy leading his kids into a cult. Now they're playing soccer instead of football.
Yeah, I know.
That's such a little moment. My favorite moment of the episode, and for everybody out there listening, you watch the episode, but he's going through some stuff. But he's also being removed as kind of like head of the boosters. And this guy, Lester, is now taking his spot that obviously Coach McGregor likes. There's
He
a
never even
scene where
played
he's in
football.
Lester's trophy room.
Mhm.
That's not in the script.
Really?
Yep. And I talked to Brad about it, and he said, he's like, if Brad's going to be, I mean, if Buddy's going to be so drunk that he gets in like a fist fight and falls in the mud, like, can we just do a little thing where I'm doing like a little preamble of like, you can tell there's something.
So good.
And Reiner was like, yeah, fuck, let's shoot it right now. Let's go in this little room. And they have all these, the heads on the wall. And when he looks out the window, all of that is just Brad just improving. He's like,
hillbilly mouth breather.
Bridge runner. He's
So
like,
good.
here we are in Lester's trophy room. Lester's wholesome trophy room. He probably never even killed one of these guys. It's
So
like,
good.
and then all that. I do love how they're bringing Riggins and Lyla back together. Buddy in this moment kind of being a reflection of what Riggins has dealt with his whole life, and kind of giving Lyla some insight into, when Riggins says, I've been around a lot of drunks, your dad isn't one of them. Like, he just had a rough night tonight. Like, gives her a little insight, and the viewers, into like how Riggins grew up and maybe why Riggins is how he is. And the two of them going at it, the weird prayer scene that Lyla has in the lunchroom, and he obviously sees it, starts making out with a chick. There's this tug of war happening with them. It's how you do a love triangle incredibly well.
Is the
And
third leg of the triangle God?
It's me.
Speaking of love triangles, briefly,
Yeah.
after all these years, seeing Julie cheat on you
Oh.
with the Swede,
Oh, my
I
God.
still felt a sense of like
Well, thanks.
Landry. No, don't do that to Matt.
It was my thought this whole time. I'm like, in order to make a love triangle interesting, you got to like the characters. Who likes the Swede right now?
He's not that unlikable.
He
I don't
calls,
know. He's
he
kinda
ruffles
creepy. He's a
Julie's
little
hair, and
creepy.
he's like, "Okay, kid,
Okay,
see you
kid.
later."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you got to go to school." "Oh yeah, pep rally, we used to do those." Like, I mean, he's just like so condescending the entire time. I
Yeah,
hate
yeah.
every
She
bit
eats
of
it up.
Oh,
She finds it sexy.
Yeah.
she does. She kisses him in the car, takes some ownership of her own life there, and
I was
Matt.
actually proud of Matt when she dumped him and was like, "No, it's not you, it's me." And I think I said something like, "Yeah, no, it's not me.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you could want from me."
yeah.
So cool.
Wanted to give a quick shout out. Mitchell Lance Adams played Antoine Beltrain. I want to give him his flowers because I thought he
Yeah.
was
Yeah, he was
awesome
great.
in this episode. All right. I think that's pretty much all the storylines. Is there anything else you wanted to cover, Jesse? If so, we could do it in overtime. I think we're going to move into that.
Yeah.
Overtime, Jason Street's storyline.
Yeah, sure.
Overtime 1. When Jason Street goes to the doctor and he's regaining grip in his hand, that's a huge deal. It happens quite often. But what ends up happening quite often is it is false hope of, and I thought it was really interesting to have that doctor in that scene as Jason's kind of going, "Hey, I can move my, look at this grip. I can grip a pencil now. What does that mean? That means I can probably," and he's like, "You're never going to walk again."
Yeah.
It's like, who are you to say? And he's like, "I'm your doctor. That's who I am to say." When I go out into the lobby and I meet the guy who sends Jason Street down a path of very crazy storyline, shark injections in Mexico. That person playing the role of Steve is Mark Zupan. That is the lead of Murderball.
Yeah.
Talked about it a lot on this show. They had been looking for an opportunity to get Mark Zupan in, and this was the perfect opportunity. So it was so
awesome.
cool that we got Mark Zupan on the show. The second thing, the dream scene. When I talked to Tammy, the dream is actually a huge storyline in this script where everything was taken out. So under review, the episode actually opens, and I can't believe that they even attempted to do this. On a beach, white sand, water the color of vacation, closing on Jason Street, gets a beer from a kid, and then you hear a voice, "Let me have a sip of that, would you, sugar?" And you turn around, and it's Tammy Taylor, full bikini, the two of them on a beach in Mexico together. And I give her the beer. She takes a drink. She goes, "Why don't you go ahead and go for a swim, babe?" And I'm like, you know I can't do that. She's like, "You know what I think? I think you're not trying hard enough." That's what I think. And Jason laughs at her, but then tries to stand and does. Then they make out.
No.
I'm not kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember
It's
this
so
in the script
crazy.
because this is like one thing that I remember because it's so crazy. This memory has stuck with me.
Jason hands her his bottle. As she takes a swig, she smiles, leans over and kisses him before he leaves. A real sexy, awesome kiss. This is
But
the
you didn't
opening
shoot that.
of the episode. No, we
No.
never even got to shoot it. But the fact that it's even in the script is like such a sign that in season 2, we are doing things very differently.
Got to get people to watch the show,
Yeah,
man.
we were trying to boost those numbers.
We
Yeah.
still were going to shoot it when I did the scene when I go to Tammy and I say, you know, "You're in my dream," and in the dream you tell me I can walk. That's why there's like the indecision in Jason and stuff like that.
That
Anyway,
makes sense.
yeah. So,
Ah.
but she's so good in that scene too, because there's so many emotions when she turns around that I saw. Like, she was like, "Oh, that was so sweet," and then she was like, "Oh my God, that's so heartbreaking." Like that he to say I'm gonna walk again. This like it's a year later post injury. Usually you would hope
Right.
that like he would be kind of really, I don't know, understanding of his own reality. But then Jason starts on this journey down this crazy road.
Hey, if a sliver of hope for certain things in life, and especially if it's walking, I buy it.
Yeah, I do too. I just thought that was kind of one of the soul sweet scenes
Yeah.
in the episode, like truly. And you two are really, yeah, there's an interesting dynamic there, and just seeing her for a second kind of get out of the sort of, place that she's been.
My one
You know.
flag on the episode I gotta throw.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it was glaring to me.
Hmm.
The scene where Riggo takes Buddy home with Lyla, he's wearing a season 1 jersey, where in all the other scenes he's wearing a season 2 jersey. So like wardrobe messed up big.
Yeah.
Unless he got in the car and decided to put his old jersey on.
At
Oh,
that
you're saying
big pep
from
rally.
from the pep rally to
Yeah.
that scene?
Yeah, at that big pep rally is the unveiling of the new Panther jerseys with like that stripe down
Yeah,
both
the
sides.
Under Armour ones.
The Under Armour ones, yeah, sponsored by Under Armour. Gaius crushes the wrap in the brand new jersey.
Mhm.
Not scripted. He wrote that himself, as he always did. Yeah, that's a big flag on the play.
That's my big flag on the play.
Yeah, just put on his old jersey. He just has all of his jerseys just hanging out in his truck.
That's where he changes.
Do you have any overtimes, Jesse? Anything that we didn't get to talk about that you wanted to talk about in this episode?
Okay, well, I said I might mention the first episode of season 2. One thing that I found so crazy and impossibly difficult to do was the music choice at last episode, starting with that Wilco song,
Muzzle Bees.
with everything that's happening with all of the characters, starting with the birth of Gracie,
Yeah.
ending with Landry bludgeoning this guy to death, and somehow that song fits. Oh, the music was so good in this show, along with everything
Yeah.
we talked about. But
That song
that
was,
seems like an
perfect.
impossible thing to do, is tie all of this together,
We had some really good music supervisors on our show. I think Reiner had amazing, like,
Yeah.
a taste, but like, understanding of what song is going to do what mood and bridge what storylines.
Yeah.
But I actually became friends somewhere towards the end of the series with one of our music supervisors. Like I ran into him at a Broken Bells concert. Oh, remember when we,
Yeah. Went to the rehearsal.
yeah. So anyway, and I started talking to him. He's like, I'm a music supervisor on the show. And then for years, he would send me like, music that wasn't out yet. And that's like how I got my music. And I thought it was really cool.
The music
Yeah.
supervisor filled your
Yeah.
song list.
I got my new music.
I remember
from the music
finding
supervisor.
new music I loved through the show, when I was shooting.
Yeah. Did you watch the show when it was initially on?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
So you've watched it once and you've put it away. You've never gone back to watch it again.
Maybe it's been at least a decade, probably.
I haven't watched any of it since it aired.
Yeah.
Wow.
How often do you watch it? Once a year?
I have not watched it either.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. It's like it was so long ago and there was so much emotion because for a lot of us, this was our first like big thing and we were making choices that I never thought about the fact that the choices I made then would stick with me forever on this show that has now become this big thing with so many people that love it so much. I go back and watch it. I can't help but be critical of the decisions I made. I'd never really done this before. And also everything that came along with it. Like living in Austin, not knowing anybody and being cut off from all you guys for most of the first season. There's a lot of emotion that is all cooked into that it brings up when I watch the show. It's how I was and who I was in my life outside of filming. So,
But I think that all comes across in what you're doing too, and street. I think of that all that's in there,
yeah. And I mean, I know life experience informs all of that, but I think it's a reason why a lot of us haven't gone back to watch it. I don't know. Why do you
I
think
just
you haven't?
only watch everything once.
One
I've
time.
literally never watched anything I've done twice.
Yeah. There are many things that I've never watched.
I have some of those as well. It's I also felt like on most shows, and especially on this one, where the show is really good. That's why I did keep watching it. Once you've done a few episodes, when you know what it is, you know exactly what it's going to look like when it gets on the TV, and it's almost like aside from the music, but you kind of at a certain point know like, well, these are the songs they're going to use or the type of music, and so sometimes it's like I don't even need to watch it. I know what it is.
Before we go, you have done so much since the show that we're not going to get into, but is there anything you took with you from Friday Night Lights into everything, or has every experience just kind of been new and fresh, and have you been able to approach everything differently?
I'm curious what you guys would say to that question, but me, it was like before Friday Night Lights and after Friday Night Lights. It felt very formative, definitive. I was 18 when I got it. And I don't think up until that point I had ever looked far enough into the future and thought, is this something I'll actually do for a living? I knew I enjoyed it, but that was the first time. I think, as we were saying, it's because of this ownership that Pete placed and responsibility that Pete placed on all of us. I fell in love with it in a completely different way. And just the environment on set is about the most conducive environment to good acting that you could ever have. And so after Friday Night Lights, I think I went through a bit of a creative existential crisis. It's like, how do I bring that spirit to a set that is not it doesn't work in the same way. But yeah, I feel like that was the best class I've ever taken, and it was the most fun I've ever had. And I think that's part of it too, is we were having so much fun,
Dude.
And I think that should be a part of it always. It can't always be fun, but I think
we're playing
it
make
helps.
believe. It should
Yeah.
be fun.
yeah.
And we had fun on and off set.
I remember actually. Sorry, last story. And it's
Yeah.
gonna be quick. It was after my basically, it was like my last night in Austin in season 4, and we went to whatever that TC's, and then we went fucking skinny dipping in a creek.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And
I
we
hadn't thought
worked
of it.
pretty early that next morning.
Yeah, but it was fun. It
And
was
those
a good
scenes
time.
were great.
Yeah.
There's one last story I want to tell. We've asked you about storylines. There's a storyline when Landry gets hurt.
Oh, yep.
And the impetus for this storyline is actually an injury that did happen to Jesse in real life.
Oof.
Played flag football an awful lot with some of our stunt players, with some of the background actors. We would have massive games every weekend, and we'd play in Del Valley on Panther Field. We'd like climb the fence and we'd play. It's huge insurance liability, which we never really worried about until one specific day. Jesse was playing quarterback. We were against Riggins. It was you and I on the same team. And then I took over at quarterback and you took my position at receiver.
I was having a bad day.
You threw a couple of interceptions.
Yeah, and Taylor was talking so much shit in a way that only he can.
Oh, the way that only Taylor, when he really starts to come down on you. He gets that laugh going with that high-pitched kind of like, and you know he's having the time of his life, man. And this kid, I mean, Taylor is a serious athlete. And I take over at quarterback, and you go out to sit at the receiver spot.
I think it was the first play.
Your first route
at
run.
receiver.
You look at me, I said, run a 5-yard out. You walk up to the line, and I hear Taylor, "Oh, Plemons. Oh, I'm going to eat you for lunch." I never will forget hearing that line because he was talking so much shit to Jesse. Jesse comes off the line, plants his left leg, and goes down in a heap. What happened?
Well, I did one extra unnecessary cut maneuver, thinking like, I'm gonna shut Taylor up, and yeah, I planted and lost traction, and within a minute, remember, I mean,
Oh my God.
you could tell that something was terribly
Turned
wrong.
yellow. It started to turn purple.
It swelled up and it turned really ugly very quickly.
Tore your ACL
Yeah, and
Oh.
my meniscus. And then
and your meniscus.
yeah.
Oh.
I remember this.
And then fortunately it was a show that was loosey-goosey enough, and so the producers were not happy at all. But I remember
We never got to play football on that field
No.
again until the night of our series
party. Yes.
finale rap party. The writers and actors went out and played flag football out there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but I remember saying to them, "No, it's okay. I'm sitting in all of the scenes in this following in this episode that we're shooting," and that was true. And they were like, "Well, what are we gonna do? You're supposed to be playing in the game." I was like, "Landry gets hurt." I'm like, "How does he get hurt?" Like, trips on a curb. And then they were like, "All right." Huh. And then that's what it was.
And then they wrote Landry tripping on a curb, and
I
the
was
rest
like, what
is
would be the
history.
most frustrating
Genius.
thing to say to coach? It's like, how did you get hurt?
Oh my
It would be
gosh.
that.
Tripping on a curb.
Yeah.
Oh man, we had to carry you over the chain link fence to get you out of there.
Oh my God.
Put you in a
yeah.
car. But the story feels right for Landry in the series.
Yep.
One of those, unhappy accidents, I would say, but something that worked out because the show was flexible enough. Well, man, we got to say thank you so much
Thank
to you for
you,
coming in
guys.
today. I don't know how we were able to kind of do a Jesse interview, but also do an episode breakdown while also talking about all of the murder in season 2. But I think we did it.
You mixed it all up. Guys.
For everybody out there listening who stuck with this long, I know this is our longest episode, and we say thank you to you. I know we missed some things. If there's any scenes you want us to talk about in the future, please go to the Apple Podcast rate and review section or the YouTube comment section. Let us know what you would like to see or hear from us as we go on down the path of season 2. While you're there, rate the show. Give us a little subscribe to the podcast. It helps out. If you're over on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, hit that like button. You know, all the things that you're supposed to do out there. Jesse, this was incredible, man.
It was fun.
Good to see you, dude.
I know. Good to see y'all.
For myself, for Zach, for Jesse, we like to say goodbye the same way every single week. We will see you all out there listening next Thursday morning. But until we do, clear eyes.
Full hearts.
And lose, baby.
Woo!